to my cluttered garage. I'm really glad you're here. A place where we can laugh and talk and days are filled with cheer. The clouds of sun may come and go, but one thing's always clear. Welcome back, my friend. You know I'm really glad you're here. Yeah.
Hey, welcome back, my friends. I am really glad you're here on this April 3rd, 2023, and we're well on our way to spring. So good to see you. And there's still sunlight out the window, and I can't believe how quickly 7 p.m. rolls around now that it stays light longer. I found myself working longer, and then I looked at the clock, and it was like 6:15. I got to get going. So anyway, we're here, and I really appreciate you being here. I want to welcome you tonight. It's a special live stream show tonight because I have a special guest, as you saw in the thumbnail, Linda, our resident beekeeper, as we call her, aka my sister, who doesn't live here, but she keeps bees on the property as well as other properties. And I've learned an awful lot about bees, and I hope that you will too. So we're going to bring her on in just a second. So that's basically about tonight's show. We're going to be talking bees, which is not talking tractors, but we all like living in the country, and that's kind of what we talk about is rural things. And what's more rural than insects and nature? So we'll be talking about that. If it is your first time here, please say hi in the live chat. Let us know it's your first time here. How'd you find the channel? Was it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? What brought you here tonight? Or maybe you just know Linda, so you're here for Linda. And also, while you're watching tonight at any point right now would be great. Just give a thumbs up. Appreciate that as well. And then later on, we'll be doing a sticker giveaway. I've got the old vinyl stickers that we give away each week, and that is always a lot of fun. By the way, in the live chat, you'll see a place where you can enter questions or comments or things like that. Hi, folks out there in the live chat. So if you have a question for me, for Linda, for anybody in the chat session, enter it like this with the word question followed by your question. We'll try and pick it out and answer it if we can. So we have a lot to go over tonight. So let's see who's here in the comments. Well, we've got, I like to look back and see who was the first one in, because a lot of you folks come in like 6:30 p.m. So Manisto Key, Mark is here. First one I see in my chat. So good to see you, Mark. And of course, there's David from RCAF Polar Express, and Ross, When Work is Play. Jason, Brutal Bob is here, and J&J, B Hall. Good to see you all. There's Chris from the Watershed. It's our Monday night group. We're back together once again, and I am glad to always see you here for sure. So there's John from a Ritterbit will do, Peterson Farm of Little Nashville, and I can't name you all, but anyway, welcome. Let's bring Linda on so we don't waste any time, because we're only going to go for 1 hour tonight, like we do. We'll answer questions, we'll talk bees, and then and you'll probably be inspired to I don't know, to do something. So anyway, it's my honor and my pleasure to introduce Linda from Mimi's Bees. Hey, Lynn.
Hello. Hey, everybody.
Good to see
Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Well, it's not hard to talk about. Not hard to talk about your big sister, like that. So learned a lot more than bees from you. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Hi, TV Land, everybody out there.
You're usually on the other side of the screen on Monday nights.
I am. I usually am. This brings back memories of teaching with Zoom.
Oh my gosh.
Meetings, but I haven't done this in a long time.
I bet you there are.
I can answer some questions, and
I bet you there are a lot of people that can relate to that. I know John Ritter's a teacher and went through that as well. So yeah, this is like a Zoom call for you.
Really?
Only maybe more fun.
Oh, definitely more fun. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Hopefully so.
I love to talk bees.
Well, good. That's what we'll do. Now, you're a little bit familiar. You can see on the right-hand side, I think the right-hand side of your screen, there are comments in the live chat.
Okay.
And as we're going through tonight, if you kind of glance over there, then you can, you might say, hey, so-and-so has a question, and we can pull it up. Look,
Sure.
first comment from Lori. You're so beautiful. Isn't that
Oh,
nice?
she's just so sweet all the time. That
So,
cousin of mine, she's special. She's a special cousin. Love
right.
her. Love her.
So great. Well, so gosh,
Yeah, John
people have
Ritter.
approached me
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
either. That's okay. People have approached me either locally because they see your beehives on the property, or they've seen them in the videos in the background. They ask all the time about the bees, and I tell people we've got nothing to do with the bees other than providing a space for them. And you started doing this at your farm, and then
Right.
you needed places to put the hives. So let's back up a second and tell me when you first got into bees. It's been quite a few years now, and what inspired you to get into beekeeping? What was your drive?
Well, we moved to the farm, a homestead farm that was my husband's, and it was empty. His parents had passed, and we sold our house and fixed up the farmhouse. And he was, we were able to make it our home, and it was his dream since childhood. And so we had this farm, and I'm thinking, okay, we have a farm. Now, what do we do with it? And the first thing I thought of was bees. I thought, and I started to read about them, learn about them, and I got very excited um, to incorporate that in the farm. So that's how I got started, and it just kind of grew from there.
Well, that's interesting that you got more excited as you went along instead of discouraged, because my understanding of beekeeping, well, I learned everything from you at this point. I was pretty ignorant, and I think a lot of people are. I was always the impression when I would drive around and see beehives in fields, I thought you bought these beehive boxes and you put them in the field and bees would come, like setting up a birdhouse that they would just come into it. But it's not like that at all. You have to establish the colony. You have to, I guess, tell
Hmm.
me what you have to do. Like if I bought a beehive, which is just a box, I guess you can tell us about
Called
that.
a nuke,
How do I,
or you can
what's
get a
my first
package.
step?
Right.
What are my first
So my
steps?
first year, I lost my bees because I didn't know. Hadn't taken a beekeeper's course. I didn't know anything, and I thought, kind of like you, I'm going to get bees. It's a farm. They're going to find. And the first year, they absconded, which means they just took off, probably because of the mites or they didn't have enough food. But it didn't discourage me. It made me want to learn more. And so then I went to a beekeeping course from that to learn what I did wrong or what I can do right. And then got two nukes. A nuke's a small box that contains a queen and 5 frames of bees with the brood, which is the babies. And you start small, and then you continue. They grow, and you put more boxes on so they can grow. And that's where it's tricky. You have to watch their brood pattern. You have to watch how many bees in the box, because if you have too many bees, they will leave. They will swarm. And so it's you have to be committed. You have to be committed to it.
So let's back up a little bit. And I do want to just mention to the folks watching, I see a lot of questions popping up already. And I want to ask people to hold off their questions because these are going to get lost in the comments.
Yeah.
Because I want to come to a special time when we can ask questions. And I see some of these already, but I don't want to jump too far ahead to answer those questions. So if I can just ask people to hold your questions a little bit longer so that we can answer them. And then don't feel bad to cut and paste your question later on. But
Yeah. Mhm.
talking about the hive now, the way I picture this, that beehive is almost like a high-rise building for people.
Right.
You said you started out with one or two. Um, what's the base called?
The base is it's a nuke, and then once that's a tiny one, and then it's a brood box. So it's one box, and then they grow to the one box, and then when they get really full and all the frames are filled, you add a second box.
So the
And
box
then a second
has
box. So it's
these
like a
5
high rise.
frames,
Right.
and these frames, I've seen the brand new ones that aren't used yet. I think they have like a middle part that's made of plastic, and it's already shaped like a honeycomb.
Right.
And the bees come in there and they start building off of that to make
Yeah,
their
they have
own
to make all of the
honeycomb.
wax. Right. Hmm. Yeah, it's a blank frame, and then they do all the wax, make all the little um, areas for the babies. Excuse me.
That's and then as
They go
they
up. They
as
do.
the frames fill up, they go up and add
Yeah, they
another,
go up.
like a second story, third story,
Exactly.
and you have like up to, I think, up to four
Mhm.
boxes or so.
Yeah, and then if they get mites, or some hives are stronger than others, you have to add more bees or take a box away. Excuse
Right.
me.
Right. Okay. Now, in that hive, there's all those boxes together make up one beehive, correct?
One colony. Yes.
One colony, one beehive. And inside that hive, you have one single queen bee.
Yes, you do.
And
They're
when you first start your colony, you have to, I guess do you have to buy a queen bee to place her, or will, like, how do you get the initial colony even started? How did they even get in there?
Well, you do when you buy your nuke, you have a queen bee that's mated, and that's how you start out. The queens, however, can die or they can swarm, but the colony, once she lays eggs, they can create a new queen. And I've done that for the last 6 years. I really haven't purchased a lot of queens. I've let them make their own queens. I am purchasing some Saskatchewan queens from Canada this year because they are better with the mites, more mite resistant. So this is going to be a new experience for me. But I kind of let them do their thing, and monitor them.
So they will take one female bee and they will dub her the queen.
Hmm.
And before she becomes the queen, is she a regular bee?
She is. She's an egg, just an egg. But what they feed her is the secret. It's called royal jelly. And they
Ah,
feed this queen very well. She gets royal jelly and she gets all these nutrition. And they're the nurse bees that do that. And their job is to feed the queen and feed all the other little larvae in there. And then it's depending on what they feed them and how much to what they become. And also the placement in the hive. Usually queen cells are on the bottom, not all across the top.
and that queen bee, I've seen you pull them out before. They're physically larger than the rest of the bees.
They are distinctive. Their abdomen is very long. It's full of eggs. So you can tell. And it's still exciting to me to find her because sometimes you can't find them. They're very fast, you know. But yes, they're distinctive.
And she rules the colony. The queen rules. They
Well,
do is for that queen, right?
that's right. To keep her laying.
So you could have 100,000 bees or more in that colony.
It's
I
usually
don't
like
know, just guessing.
60,000 to 80,000 in a colony. But when they swarm, it's not up to the queen. They tell her, you got to go. So she either runs out of places to lay or she's getting old. And it's really interesting. They actually run her around the hive so she loses weight. They don't feed her as much so
Wow.
that she'll be able to fly when she swarms. So I
they
always
tell
have to try
her,
to catch those swarms before they leave,
look, this building is getting too
Right.
full. We've got too many bees in here.
Exactly.
So half of us need to leave to
Right.
make space.
That's right.
And in order to do that, queen, we need you to leave.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So they kind of tell her that, and then they make her lose weight so she
Mhm.
can fly out.
So she can fly. Yes.
And then now we're talking about swarms. So
Yes.
now she flies out of the hive.
Yes.
And now I know that bees follow the queen. So when she flies out of the hive, why don't they all follow her? All of them.
Well,
Because
you
only
have
like half of them follow her, right?
exactly. You have your forager bees, right? Then you have your nurse bees. They're the same size, but all the bees have different jobs in the hive. They actually progress from, being a nurse bee when they're first born. They also have to clean out cells. There's cleaner bees. There's also guard bees. So they have to graduate to be a forager to go out. So nurse bees kind of stay in. they wait for all the pollen to come in and help to make the honey and feed the bees, the larvae and, and the babies, the brood. So mostly they're nurse bees that are left behind. And some of the foragers that are out will come back with the pollen and realize she's gone. So they've missed her.
So they leave, and thank you, David White, for this super chat. I appreciate that. The queen bee is in his picture next to his name. It's kind of hard to see on the screen, but David, I guess, has bees there, and
Oh, nice. Oh,
queen's
she's
right in the middle though.
Russian.
Yeah.
Oh, best luck with Russian. That I was thinking about Russian bees, but I don't know
Nice.
about the temperament. But
Oh
they're
yeah.
supposed to be hardy.
So back to the swarm. The queen leaves. The other bees. What'd you call the ones? They're not the workers. What are the ones that
Oh
follow
yeah,
her?
they're the workers, the worker bees. They follow her, the foragers or whatever. Yep, they
They
follow
follow her,
her.
and she lands like on a limb or a tree somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she waits, and then these other bees go out to search for a new home, right?
Yeah, there are scout bees as well
Scout
in that
bees.
pile, and they will she'll find a place, and they will swarm. Most of them will swarm around her to keep her safe, and then the scout bees will go out and they'll find a place for her to go, and they come back, and that's what happened a couple days ago to me because they had swarmed. And when I got there, the scouts had come back and said, "Okay, we have a new place for you to live. Follow us."
So,
And you have
so
a
the
picture
queen
of that.
leaves. She lands on a limb. Some bees stay with her. The scouts say, "Listen, queen, you wait here, and you guys protect her. We're going to go out. We're going to find a new home, and then we'll come back and bring you to the new home."
That's right.
And they all go to the new place.
Right.
And your job as a beekeeper is to catch them before they find that new home. And if you catch the queen and those other bees, you can put them into a hive and essentially give them a new home. And
Exactly.
then,
But also, as a beekeeper, I like them not to swarm. So I like to read them and be aware that the signs are there that they're about to swarm when there are queen cells and things. But the weather has been very warm here. The evenings have been very cold, so you have to work around the weather. I have to treat for mites, and that's a certain degree. So I haven't been able to open them up comfortably enough because of this weather. It's like warm and then cold and warm and cold. And you want them to be stable. So this next week, I got to get out there because I'm sure they're ready to
and
go.
warm up.
Some of them.
Yeah. So we do have a couple questions that are appropriate since we're talking about queens. So Bedbug here is asking a question: how long or how often do queen bees reign? Uh, do
Yeah.
they
Well,
change out every couple of years, or what happens?
usually 3 to 5 years they can live, but that doesn't mean that they're going to stay in the hive, depending on how well they've made it. A queen bee will take 2 flights usually in her life. The first one is her mating flight, where she'll fly out after she's like 5 days old or so, and she will mate in the air with the drones. And the drones are the male bees. They're the big ones, and their only job is to mate the queen. So she will go into and find a bunch of drones and then come back mated. And then the second time would be when she swarms. But, sometimes they die. Sometimes, they'll make another queen that I won't know about. And that queen will kill the other queen because they don't like her. I mean, it's amazing. But usually a queen can last 3 years if they're decent. And 3 years.
Now inside the hive and the combs are the baby bees, right?
Yes, it's called the brood, and she lays the eggs in there. The nurse bees feed them, and then they cap them. They cover them up so that they can mature.
Are all the baby bees from that one queen?
Yes,
Every all
she lays like 1,000 or more a day. Like that's all.
Wow.
That's her job. She just lays, and that's why you have to make sure she has room to lay.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
mhm.
And then the honey is inside these encapsulated in these combs, right?
Yes, there are honey frames, there are pollen. A nice brood would be in the like a moon shape, like or a half circle, and then you'd see honey on the side and pollen, so that it's easy access to feed.
But the baby bees, and what's the right term for a baby bee?
Well, I it they're babies. I don't know the larvae, they're
Okay,
baby bees. The ones
then
that are
I'll call them
hatched.
baby
You mean
bees.
the ones that are hatched or ones that are still in the?
Let's say the ones that are forming now, are they encapsulated in the honey, or is that a separate thing?
Well, they've given them food. Yeah, they've given them everything they need, and then once they have the food that they need, they cap them up, and then they mature. It takes
And
it takes about like 21 days, something like that.
so when you collect honey, you're not separating honey from baby bees. They have little containers.
Right.
The
And
honey's encapsulaed by itself with nothing in it.
right, when May comes, the end of April, actually it's going to be, and honey season starts, I'll be putting boxes on, supers they're called, with all new frames, and then they will fill them up. The top one will be all honey. The babies will be at the bottom, the brood. Right.
And I think I can answer this, and then you can expand on it. Folks might say then, well, why do bees even make honey if they're not, if it's just there? But
That's their
my
food.
understanding would be that that's their food to get them through the next season. So they're
Right.
basically stockpiling food, and that's what
They
you
feed
harvest.
they feed the queen. They feed the larvae as well. Hmm.
And do they overproduce so that you can collect honey and not kill off the hive because they have enough? Like, how do they have enough to survive the winter? If you're collecting their honey, how do they live through the winter?
So you want to make sure they have a whole super. They have a whole at least 8 frames. I do 8 frames, not 10. So you want to make sure they have a whole box to get through. You don't want to take more than you need to. They want to be, and you can also tell by lifting the hive. Sometimes there's more in the second box or in the brood chamber. You want to lift it up to see that it's heavy enough.
So they produce more than enough.
They do way more than enough. Yes.
Wow.
Way
They
more.
are amazing. So here's a question from Chris, and I'm getting into questions now. So if folks
Good,
do have questions,
because
I
I'm
think we can
having a
bring
hard
those up.
time reading them.
Okay. Well, Chris is asking or mentioning that he recently met an apiary owner who said his main income came from making and selling queens, not honey. Can you explain that a little bit or talk about how that works?
Definitely. You don't get rich selling honey. It's hard work, it's labor. I do it because, you want to pollinate and I love to give people the local raw honey. Queens, you can graft queens, you can make your own queens, you can grow the queens. It's a whole different ball game. I mean, $40 a queen. If you want to make a whole box of queen, make a queen castle, and then you can graft them. Yes, you can make a lot of money selling queens. But a lot of people graft them, and that's a whole nother thing. It's a little tool, and you have to get the little egg at the right time with enough of the jelly, and you put it in a cup, and then it goes in a special little box with a bunch of nurse bees to finish that, to care for that queen until it's hatched. But that's on my list to try, but I haven't yet, so I can't speak to all the detail of that. But you can make money selling queens because they're always needed.
So if you bring in a man-made queen, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and you place that in a hive, the bees will just naturally accept her as queen?
Not always. Not
Okay.
always. And it's really not man-made. It's just that the bees are finishing. You've taken that egg and relocated it into another frame. The bees have to finish it. They have to feed it. They have to cover it. They have to close it. And then when it's ready to come out, then you can take that queen and you put her in a little cage and you put her in that hive, that queenless hive, and hope they accept her after maybe 2 days or so. Usually if they're queenless, they want a queen, they'll accept her. Letting a queen go right away in a hive is tricky because sometimes they don't accept her and they would kill her. So
Interesting. So here's a question from Mark here about the wintertime. You've told me some interesting facts about beehives in the winter, asking how you manage to keep bees alive during the cold winter. He lost his colony this year. So I've seen you doing some special things. Let's talk about cold weather for bees.
Right. Bees have to maintain at least a 90-degree temperature in the hive, and they do that. For cold winters, they need a lot of honey. And I wrap my hives with the insulation and strap them down. And really, it's more the moisture that kills the bee than the coldness. Bees can keep that relatively warm at their 90-degree, but you have to have ventilation so that there's not moisture in the hive, because the moisture will kill the bees. Will kill them. That's mainly what kills them. Or it could be that the mites, if you didn't treat properly, in the fall, the mite buildup could happen. So it's tough.
So aside from the mites, I've got a picture here of your hives in the wintertime with snow on them. You can see the 1 inch or inch and a half solid core foam that you have panels placed around the hive to insulate it, strapped in place.
Right.
And you said the bees have to maintain 90 degrees inside that hive. You don't do anything to add heat. They do that all
No,
themselves,
they do
right?
that themselves, and they take turns with their little wings. They'll flap in the cluster. They cluster together, and they keep that hive, take turns keeping that hive at that temperature. And they're pretty good. They're pretty hardy in the cold, actually. A lot of beekeepers in South Jersey here don't even put insulation on their hives. So, it's up to the beekeeper. And it was a very mild winter this year, so I really didn't need to do the insulation. It doesn't hurt them. It makes them work less hard, maybe. But some beekeepers don't even insulate. So it's all up to the beekeeper.
So in colder states, they can even survive there. Like I know that Mark happens to be from Canada. We've got friends in I think Minnesota who have bees, so
Mhm.
they can survive even in those climates, apparently, right?
They can. I mean, insulation will help them because it will help keep them warmer. They don't have to work so hard, and they can get to their food when they need it. But I've always done it, and I've always been successful. Um, they usually always survive. Uh, but again, they say if you ask 5 different beekeepers the same question, you're going to get 5 different answers. So
Right, right. But these bees, I mean, these are cold-blooded little insects,
yes,
and they're generating 90 degrees just basically from friction, right? From
exactly.
flapping their wings.
Hmm.
That's my bee impression right
Yeah,
there.
that's pretty good.
There it is.
Yeah, yeah.
But just by
They
flapping and
are
friction,
amazing. Hmm. They're amazing.
yeah, there's so like you can dive so deep into the culture of bees and from what I understand, there's so much we don't even know or don't understand.
That's true. This is true. They
Um,
take care of. They have their jobs. They give their life to their hive. I mean, a worker bee in the summer will last maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then die because they work so hard. And it's amazing. They all have a job, and they do their job, and you know, they do it for the hive, so the hive will continue.
they are interesting. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Linda, a beekeeper, and we're learning quite a bit. There's a question here from Gary in Indiana. Um, I guess Gary raises bees, and he's seeing that his honey is more cloudy than it used to be. It used to be dark, but now it's kind of more clear. What would change the color of the honey or the
I would
uh,
think the pollen, unless it's crystallizing on you, and you would know if it's crystallizing because it would be like a crystal. But um, I know we have in South Jersey the clover. Right now, it's the trees, the maple trees, and everything's blooming. But clover was abundant last year, and it was very light honey. So that'll give you very light honey. But it depends on what is blooming in your area and where their source is. I mean, bees can go 3 miles or so, maybe even more, to find pollen. So um, I don't know if it's not. My guess would be pollen, the type of pollen that they're using.
Different type of pollen. And for those who haven't seen bees collecting pollen, I want to share a picture that you sent to me. Uh, you can see on the screen here. I don't have a pointer, but that yellow bulge on the basically on the kneecap of that bee, that's all pollen, correct? They
That
collect it on
is
their.
all pollen, beautiful pollen, and that's what I do when I walk down and see my hives. I want to see those workers come in with those little packed pollen packets. That's a sign that it's a healthy colony. The queen's okay. There's brood in there because they're feeding. I did lose one hive. And the bees weren't bringing anything in, and I thought, oh, that's not a good sign. And it was queenless, and there was no brood, so there was no reason for them to go forage. Like, they knew their demise, that they couldn't make it, so they would finish a little bit of the honey. But yep, that's a little pollen packet, and they're, depending on the type of pollen, the color. It's beautiful purple and a bright orange. So
So that
they're
could lead to the
amazing.
color of the honey.
Right. They come into the little cell, and they'll sit there, they'll knock it off, and then you'll have your nurse bees to go in, and they have to pack it in the cell after she drops it off, and she goes back to work again. So
They rummage these flowers, and the pollen sticks to their legs, or they pack it on there. They bring it back to the hive, and somebody else takes it off, or they
yeah, they
scrape it
take it
off.
off, and then the nurse bees will pack it in the cells nice and hard. They'll pack that pollen so they'll be able to use it.
What do they do with the pollen?
Well, they use the pollen, the nectar. They turn that nectar into honey. The pollen they would use to eat.
Oh, they eat the pollen.
hmm
Okay, got it. Wow. And now these bees, what's the ratio of males to females in a colony?
Well, the males are kicked out in the fall, or as soon as it starts, come. They don't need to. They're not needed. They raise the drones only to do mating for other queens around. So not a lot. I don't really know the ratio, but in the spring is when they start laying eggs and making drones, and that's all on the bottom of the frame. But way more workers, way
Which
more.
are
Yeah,
female?
right. The females, the
So
brood.
the bees you see with the pollen on their legs, those are females.
Yes, I should have got you a drone because they're very big. They're fat, big eyes, and like I
And
said, their only purpose is to mate with the queen. And as soon as they mate with her in the air, many of them, swarms of them, and sometimes there's, like they say, there's a mating area that they go to. They die.
hmm. So most of I guess what you're saying is most of the colony are female.
Most, yes.
Most.
Yep.
There you go. That's why it's so efficient. It's all run by women.
That's true. They get the work done.
Right. So John's asking a question about people who create queen bees. Is that helping with the with increase the bee population when you create queens? Or
Well, if you can make it could be a replacement queen, or you're starting nukes. What you could do, you just take, and I do that all the time. I say you take from Peter to pay Paul, and I have one hive that is not weak, or that is not strong, it's weak. I will take a strong hive. I'll take the brood, which are the babies, and if they have enough, I can give them to a weaker hive. And you would also, if you make those nukes, you would need a new queen for them. So yeah, if you're making nukes, and it would make a bigger bee
to
population.
help create more colonies, I
Right.
guess. So, and back to
They all
Mark.
don't make it. They all don't make it in through the winter. And with the mites, it's tough. It really is tough. So a lot of beekeepers lose their bees, and you know,
Yeah, talk to me about the mites, because that's something I see you out there treating for mites, which I didn't understand, and you've shared that that's a pretty big problem, and Mark's thinking that may have happened to him.
yes.
What are these
So they're,
mites you speak of?
yeah, they're varroa mite. Not sure when they exactly got here, but they are the beekeeper's worst nightmare. Um, and there's all kinds of philosophies of how you measure the mites. You're supposed to do an alcohol wash and see how many mites your hive has. Most every hive has the mites. Most every one, unless you're up on it, continuously. And you can't really treat during the honey season because you're putting supers on. You're collecting the honey. You don't want anything tainting the honey, so you have to treat prior to. So that's what I'm going to be doing this week, is treating for these varroa mites. They're like little ticks, and they go on the back of the bees or on their abdomen, and they just suck the life out of them and also spread diseases. They mainly go into the drone larvae, and lay their eggs in there, and the drones spread it.
So these, I mean, bees are little, obviously. So are these mites even visible to the human eye? Can you
It's hard
see
to
them?
see them. It's very hard to see them. You hope you don't see them, because if you see them, you have an infestation
Mhm,
unbelievably. So
right.
yeah, so you do have to keep up on the treatments. Um, spring, summer, fall.
So if
Um,
you have a problem, it might be mites.
it
It might
probably
be mites.
is. Yes.
Here's a
So,
quick question from Grace, who's age 7. Is that a Grace that you might know? I'm not sure.
oh,
Is that
might be. It might
your
be my
Gracie? I'm not
Gracie.
sure.
Love to know how bees carry pollen to
So
bring them back to
we were
the hive.
showing the picture of the legs, but how do
Yeah,
they
that's Gracie. Yeah. So
how do they
yeah,
transfer their legs?
they have little pockets, like a little pocketbook on their little knees somewhere on their legs. And they take their little tongue and they pack it in their little pockets. And then they bring their pocket, they fly back. They fly back and they put it in that little area for their nurse bees to take care of.
So they
So
pack it in their pockets,
they
and they
they
so pack
pack
it.
it in their pockets,
Grace,
and
Grace,
they're so
bees,
full sometimes they can't fly very, they're just so full.
they overpack their pockets.
Right.
That happens. So Grace, that's how it works. They're packing their pockets with pollen. Now, question here again from Chris. He's using big terms that I don't understand. Have you lost any or
Uh,
suffered from colony collapse disorder? That sounds like something you'd see on
I have not,
TV at night.
I haven't seen that in a long time. It They did, when I took the beekeeping courses, they did talk about that, but you don't see that anymore. So I really don't know much about that. I know right now it's the mites that I see. So no, I haven't had any of that. Um, and like I said, the 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 one I lost this year probably was mites, and I have to get out there and treat them, because I make sure that they have plenty of honey over the winter, and feed them in the spring. I'm always giving in the winter. I give them little um, sugar cakes with essential oils in it, and the essential oils help to keep them healthy. And they eat those little cakes if they need it. They run out of honey or whatever. So that's
So
been
you,
pretty successful.
when you collect the honey to ensure they have enough, even though you don't take all their honey, you leave a good amount, but you also supplement that with these sugar cakes. I've seen you pour like a
Right.
homemade sugar syrup in there, and they can eat that as
They
well.
can. And that's when you're not collecting honey. That's when you have a new hive. If you do a split and they don't have enough honey, you want to feed them. You want to feed that nuke. You want to make sure they have enough to raise those babies. But yeah.
So, do you want to take a special public service announcement to talk about pesticides and how people
Ugh,
treat their lawns?
yeah, I've heard killing dandelion.
And there's a good reason
Very
not
bad.
to. Yeah,
Please
not
leave the dandelions. Please. Right now, you might in South Jersey we have it's called dead nettle weed. It's purple. Um, it's all over the place. The bees are eating that right now. Dandelions are their first food, and when it's time for the clover, I'll do some wacky designs on my lawn if I see a clump of clover so that they can have it. You know what I mean? Or leave the dandelions. Yeah, if you can leave the dandelions in an area, that's what you want to do. And pesticides are a no-no. Um, I think flowers look pretty on lawns. Like, I
I
don't
was
know.
never offended by a dandelion. I never
No, it's
understood
beautiful.
the problem with dandelions. So that's interesting. And thank you, Mark, for that super chat in Canadian dollars. Even how about that? I appreciate that. Um, yeah, and Sassafras is saying that they mow around the clover, which is good. And clover's
Okay,
beautiful. I mean, it
it
doesn't grow
is.
tall, and it's really a nice ground cover.
That's perfect. Yes, I do the same
So,
thing. Yes.
David's mentioning pollen patties. Is he talking about when you talked about the sugar patties? Is there a way to
Yeah,
provide?
in right before the pollen, before everything blooms, in the early spring and the winter, you don't want to do it all winter because it's going to start the queen laying. So right before spring, right before the pollen comes out, when they need that little boost, you want to give them some pollen patties. I really didn't use pollen patties this year because it it was so warm. They were able to go get the first thing that blooms are the maples, the sugar maples. So the trees
Oh, yeah.
give them a lot of pollen.
So if their pollen pockets are empty, you can feed them pollen patties.
That's
If you can't pack their pockets with pollen,
say
you can
that
provide
real
a pollen patty.
nice. That's so funny. That is so funny.
Excellent.
That's true. But
So,
yeah.
well, if you do have any more questions for Linda, please bring them up.
Yeah, and like I'm not an expert. I'm just a hobbyist beekeeper that love bees and love nature. I'm learning so much more about, the weeds that are growing up around that I never knew before. I do have an email that if anybody has questions or I can help them with, it's mimisbeesnj.com, and you're welcome to shoot me an email. Um,
I'm going to enter that now. That's the website.
That's it.
Excellent. You can reach out to Linda that way if you have more questions. We're going to keep going here with
There's
questions.
also if you do the Gmail, the mimisbeesnj@gmail.com.
Okay. You probably have a link to that on the website too.
Yeah, I think I do.
So, well, that music means we're going to do a sticker giveaway. So, we'll take a break to do a sticker giveaway. I'm going to give away these stickers. I don't know, the white one too. I'll give away something, but I'm opening up to anybody who wants to enter. You just enter the word as I show it on the screen here, and we're going to go with #Buzz, B-U-Z-Z, can be uppercase, lowercase, no spaces. And we will have a drawing to see who will win. Anybody in the world can enter to win. Even if you won before, I don't care. I'll send you more stickers if you want. It's up to you if you want to enter. So let's do that. See how many entries we get for the stickers. Meanwhile, I really appreciate you being here tonight, Lynn. A fascinating, interesting conversation. We could probably talk for hours and hours about bees, and we'll talk a little bit more after the sticker giveaway.
Sure.
So meanwhile, folks can enter their, they can enter their #Buzz to win the sticker, or if you have questions, enter those as well. So you can look through there, Lynn. If you see any questions, keep those in mind, and we'll bring those up after the sticker giveaway. All right. And we will let this play out a little bit longer, and then we'll draw it. And then we'll get back to a few more questions about bees with Linda from mimisbeesnj.com. All right, we've got 35 entries. I think it doesn't take that long to type #buzz, so I think we can draw now and see who wins the stickers tonight. People probably aren't interested in the stickers. They want to talk about bees. Here we go, though. I almost closed that window. I was close. Our winner of the sticker giveaway tonight is Brian. Brian, I can't even say that name. Balansick, I guess. But anyway, Brian, congratulations for winning tonight. I think Brian may have won something in the past, but this will be something new for you, Brian. I need you to shoot me an email, Brian, at contactmcgtv@gmail.com with your mailing address, and I will send these out to you. Congratulations, Brian. Everybody loves the sticker giveaway, you know? It's always fun. So what are the questions we have for Linda before we wrap up? Tell me a little bit about the harvesting process. Like, do you harvest honey at one particular time of the year, or do you harvest throughout the year? When is honey harvest season?
Well, the pollen flow will be soon, and there's also a fall flow, and I don't harvest the fall honey. A lot of people take 2 harvests. I only take the 1, and I usually harvest in June. May to June is when the honey flows on and everything, and then July everything starts to kind of slow down. So I harvest in July. Take their supers off, which is quite heavy. I mean, one frame of honey is like 7 pounds, so you have 8 in the box. So you have to keep your muscles up.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I take 1 or 2 at a time and put them in something else. But yeah, I usually harvest in July, and that's when I start, you decap, you take the wax off and you put it in the spinner, and then I strain it. I never heat the honey to keep the raw, impurities in it. So I just double strain it and then bottle it, label it, sell it. Yeah, so it's very labor intensive, but it's such a great feeling. It's such a good feeling to have a product so beautiful and so pure that you can share with others, and it's good for them,
It really is. And there's a benefit, a health benefit to purchasing local or honey that was created in your region or your area, right?
Definitely.
So
For
it's
the
good to support the local
allergies,
honey, local beekeeper.
I have had a lot of the people around here come just for the honey because it is local. Pollen helps with their allergies. Mhm.
John has a question about the taste of honey. Does it vary depending on the type of pollen? I mean, we've seen
does.
colors that are different, darker honey, lighter honey.
It does. It does. The clover honey is very light, and then it gets. I don't know how to explain the taste, but it is a different taste. It gets darker as it goes on in the summer, and it's just I don't know how to explain the taste, but yes, it does taste different according to the pollen. And in the summer, they're going to use all kinds of pollen, and I don't take my bees to the peach trees or to the squash fields like some beekeepers do. And that way you would get a whole different, taste for if you just took it from that area. My bees, they get all kinds of pollen, and it's all mixed together and taste, different every year.
It's probably like wine. Like if you had a honey tasting, you could probably tell differences.
You could. I
between different
definitely
ones.
can tell summer first, the first honey, the summer honey or the spring honey from the summer honey. It looks different, and that's the clover mainly. But yeah,
Right. I would imagine that this summer honey, which really is when they got all the fresh pollen, that's when spring hits and
Intense.
pollen is everywhere.
Right.
So they're really getting fresh,
Right.
heavy pollen, I think.
And it's so good for you. I mean, the dandelions, I've just read you can eat every part of the dandelion. You can make dandelion jelly, and dandelion leaves are full of iron. I mean, and that's going into your honey. So it's
Right.
pretty, it excites me that it's so healthy.
I don't think you can eat those puffy things though when they're once they.
you know.
I think as a kid we've all tried that.
You
Thing.
want
Like,
to
"Oh,
eat
that looks
the
good."
flowers. You pick the flowers and the greens. You don't
Yeah.
want
Well,
the
they make
stem.
dandelion salads, right?
You do. You
Yeah.
can. Oh, the greens they sell in it's great for you.
Right.
Mm.
Um, so Daniel's asking about a future show. Oh, future show and tell with the boxes and frames, talking bees. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can make a video. Now, I did make a video early on when we had a swarm here on the property, and Linda came over and collected that swarm, found the queen bee. That's when I learned the most about bees, was when you had that event here, and I recorded it. So if you go to my channel and look up the bee swarm video, I think there's only one. You can probably even type in MCG bee swarm. You'll probably find that video, but it was not a very popular video because it wasn't about tractors, which is what most content is about on the channel. But it's really an interesting video, and you can check that out.
That
So
was a
that's
tough one too.
Daniel, but maybe we'll do some more.
That was a messy one.
Yeah, that was
You have
really
pictures of the
difficult.
swarm, Ed. You could show them that that we just dealt with the other day.
Yeah, there's a. This is what a swarm looks like. It's a small video, but you might be able to see how they're. You may see this in the wild sometime, maybe, but um, let's play this.
You can
Okay.
hear them. You can hear them far away when they're swarming.
Yeah, that's not.
It's not playing. It's not working.
I don't know why it's not working. That's odd. It worked before. Of course. Oh well. Let me
That's
try and
okay.
I'll try and reload it. That might help.
And you could show maybe what the swarm looks like when it lands, and there are pictures of the brood frames.
Yeah, you can see
There
the
it is.
swarm if you look closely there. Right toward the end, there's a nice zoom in.
And that is the tree they landed on, and then they were gone. By the time I got there, they were gone.
So you didn't get them.
No, they were down. They had landed on that tree probably an hour or two before I got there. And then when my son-in-law called me, he said, "There's something going on. There's bees everywhere." And I knew that it was probably too late.
Yeah.
But that is a swarm, and that's what you'll see on the trees. They're very docile when they're a swarm. You can actually, I don't touch them without anything, but some people can because they're not aggressive. They're not protecting their hive at that point. They're just with the queen and waiting for that worker to come back with information of where their new home will be. So if you ever see anything like this on, call your local beekeeper, and they will come. I've been on the, I don't know if you have that picture, Ed, of me on the backhoe. I've been up like 20 feet, 14 feet getting these bees.
I don't think I saw that one.
That one I didn't send you. There was one, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank goodness my husband has a backhoe, and I get in the bucket with all my stuff, and he lifts me up, and
Yeah.
I can.
So back to what we talked about with the queen. Now, in the middle of this big bunch of bees, there's a
Yes.
queen bee in there, and
Yes, there is.
they're all around her, right?
And that's how you can tell. I mean, if there's a big swarm like that, they're around that queen. They're
And
protecting
the way
her.
that you capture this hive and put it back into a box, you either go up there or you shake these bees off,
That's why I
and
shake them.
you find that queen, and you take that queen, you place her in a new hive,
Mhm.
and they will all magically,
Yes.
almost like a
They'll
dance, or like
march.
they're almost like liquid. They
Yeah.
just follow that scent of that queen bee,
The
and they go
pheromone.
right
Yes.
in to where
Mhm.
she is, which is just
It's an
amazing to see.
amazing thing to watch. It
It
really
really
is.
is. Now, there's one more picture here. Now, this is not a swarm. What's
This
happening
is
here?
not. I mean, it's pretty packed. That is called bearding, and that's in the summertime when they're so hot. There's too many bees, and they're trying to keep that brood at a certain temperature. It can't get too hot, so they will actually come out and beard. Or I've treated them. I've just treated them, and they're out because they don't like the treatment that I put in there.
Yeah.
So there are a couple reasons for that.
So they go out, but they hang around the hive because they don't want to leave the hive, but they just go out to
Just to
basically cool off, right?
it cools the hive. Yep, it cools the hive.
I've seen that when I've
Hmm.
been outside near the hives, and it's interesting because you can stand pretty close to the hive, and you can look at it. You can take pictures.
Hmm.
You told me long ago, don't not wear brown or black because they'll think you're a bear, right? And
That
I've
was
been
my
stung a
first
few
mistake
times.
at my first bee meeting. I had a black coat on, and the guy said, "You can't have a coat on black. They're going to think you're a bear." So yeah,
A
and they're
black fur
really
coat,
not.
right?
They're not going to sting you unless you go into the hive or you step on them. You know what I mean? They don't just come after you. That's
Yeah.
they're only protecting their home, their colony. So yeah.
You've been out there a few times doing some work, and they start to get a little bit annoyed. And I know you use the smoker, and the smoker uh, does something where it calms them.
Mhm.
It blocks their scent, right? It
Yes, it
blocks
does.
basically blocks their communication with each other.
Right.
Um, but still, they get pretty annoyed
Oh,
sometimes.
yeah. And
And
sometimes they get very angry at me, and I'll say, "Don't come near here." They're mad. I just, but yeah, the smoke helps them calm down. It they don't know what to do. They just kind of go back down
yeah,
and,
and
yes.
I've been out there watching. Of course, you're all suited up, and
Hmm.
I'm not. And if even if I'm standing 20 feet away, once in a while there'll be one that for some reason he latches onto me and attacks me, and I've like a fool, I've run, and
Yeah.
they're like, this one is like following me. I can't get rid of them. Like once they decide to, I guess, protect the queen, they
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
really give up.
Yeah. If they feel threatened and they think you're a threat, they will sting you. They'll
Yeah,
come after you. But
yeah. But for the most part, they're much safer than what people think.
they are. They really are.
It's not like you walk past a hive and they see you and they want to attack you. They're minding their own business. You're minding your business.
I mean, you could
And
take a chair, a lawn chair, and just they're very it's almost meditative watching them, in the summer, and just sit there and watch them in and out, and it's a lovely thing.
yeah. One tip I also learned, and you hate to kill a bee, but if you do have one that's trying to sting you, I think one of your other folks told me don't swat at it.
Yeah,
Actually, just
yeah,
just hit it, because
yeah.
if you swat it, you're just going to push it away. And it's going to come back and keep
Right,
keep
right,
trying.
right.
So,
It's true.
wow.
That's true.
Well, this was a fun conversation. Um, I really want to thank you for joining me tonight. I hope that people enjoyed. We had a lot of people watching, so I think this was really fun for people to see. A little different than some of the chat we have about tractors and equipment, but it's all about you know things that we see in the country and farm life and all that. So you've done an exceptional job with those bees. How many hives total do you have right now
I think I have 20 right now. So, and,
on
and
various
I have,
properties? You have your own
three different
prop.
apiaries around, right? And it's a pretty full time job, and April's my busy season right now.
Yeah.
April,
And
July.
you also shared with me one time that when you split a hive, like if it's too big and you have to take half of it away,
Hmm.
you can't create another hive next to it because they'll all try to go back to the hive. In fact, you can't create another hive within how far?
So they do walk away hives, and I just did that at Phil's, my son-in-law's. Um, when you do that, the worker bees or the foragers are going to go back to the main hive, and that's what you're referring to. So yes, when I do a split, I like to take that hive and move it 2 miles away.
2 miles.
2 miles away, or they'll reorient because they have to orientate to where they are. They have this little GPS, and they know where they are. And if you just leave them right there, they're going to go right back to where they were. So you need to actually find another property to put them on. Then you can always bring them back.
Right. But it's I picture it like almost like if you held two magnets together, and if one magnet was the beehive and the other magnet were the bees, there's a point where you feel that drawing, but then if you get far enough away, you
Right,
lose that magnetic
right.
force, and then they have to reset somewhere
And they're
else.
like,
But
okay, that's
otherwise, they'll
we're not
find their way
here.
back.
Right,
Very cool.
exactly.
Very cool. Well, there's so much more we could talk about. So if people like this, I hope you'll come back and talk to me again, and maybe we'll do another video about it, if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, I love talking bees. There's a whole, like I said, the pollen season's upon us, and then I'll be doing the harvesting. That's always interesting. Um, so sure, I'm willing if anybody wants to talk bees.
Let me know in the comments or email me what you'd like to see, and we'll do our best. So, well, thanks, Lynn. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a good night and a good week. And I look
You
forward to
too.
seeing you next time you're over here doing some bee work.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for having me on. It was my pleasure.
Good times. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here tonight. This was really fun to talk to Linda about bees. I hope you had a good time. I know there's probably a lot more questions that we could answer. So let's talk about it some more in the future. Meanwhile, I hope you have a great week. Enjoy the spring weather that's coming closer and closer every day. Just again, thanks for all your support. And I look forward to seeing you next time.